Good evening, viewers. This is your favorite host, Sri Iyer from PGurus.com. I hope you have been subscribing to our channel and also donating to our channel. For those of you who are doing recurring donations, I tip my hat to you. Very thoughtful of you, because then I don't have to worry about it. There's always some money coming in on a monthly or a quarterly basis. And I'm very, very thankful to all those of you who are doing this. And today we are going to follow some rapidly moving developments in the United Kingdom. As always, our friend Satish Kumar Sharma ji joins us. Pandit Satish Kumar Sharma ji, welcome to PGurus channel.
Pranam Ayarji, Om to all the viewers. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, never a dull moment in the UK at the moment. It's keeping everybody on their toes. Lots and lots of things happening, and good things as far as I can tell.
Yes, indeed. And for the viewers, we're just going to do a quick survey. I'm going to give you the agenda of today's talk. We're going to look at the recent cabinet reshuffle, then yesterday's statement by Justin Welby, and then there is a surprise element that you'll have to wait until the end of this talk to know what it is. And I'm sure it will be thrilling a lot of you. So here we go. Panditji, take it away. What happened in the cabinet reshuffle and why?
Okay. Well, we've had, in fact, it's 4:30 here in the UK, and the reshuffle is still going on. A lot of the key positions have been announced. Now, it's strange it's being reported in the press by the left-wing press that this is terrible, we've only just had an election, and, you know, to go to a reshuffle so quickly, must be big problems. But I think they're overreacting a little. It's not uncommon that the team that can win an election may not necessarily be the best team to deliver the results of that election. So from one point of view, I think Boris, Prime Minister Johnson and his team have been quite courageous to say, no, we're now in office, we now need the best team who can actually deliver the results, and that's a fairly courageous challenge and a fairly courageous decision. So I don't think there are any difficulties in the fact that a reshuffle is occurring. It seems to me a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Well, one of the pleasant surprises has been the rise of the new Chancellor of Exchequer, Rishi Sunak. We heard about him 2-3 years, the previous election or the one before that, wherein he was still being associated as the son-in-law of an illustrious founder of Infosys, Sri Narayana Murthy. I mean, that was the association, and also of a British Indian origin and so on and so forth. So this appointment comes as a rather pleasant surprise, because all of a sudden, Indians all over the world can feel proud that perhaps many British Indians are now occupying places of importance. I mean, it's not just a state, what do you call as, minority affairs or something like that, but really, really important positions. And what are your thoughts on that? Why did Sajid Javid leave?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So the mischief makers are already out there filling the airwaves saying that Rishiji's appointment, he's too young, he's too junior, etc., and that perhaps it's not the right thing, and there must be a story behind it. But there are a couple of factors which those of us who follow these things are aware of. One is that Rishiji from day one was actually very confident that the Brexit scenario should be pursued. And so right from the outset, he has always been in the Brexit camp. Secondly, he's always been very loyal to Boris's team as being the people who could deliver this particular mandate and requirement from the people. So his appointment is entirely consistent from that point of view. With regard to him being junior, now this is an interesting one because most people don't know, but he's actually an incredibly skilled and capable analyst in terms of data, projections, big data work and so on. And I know that from day one, he was always of the view that the doom and gloom painters, the Project Fear, those who were predicting that the economy would fall off a cliff if Brexit happened, his projections were always saying, well, actually, no, this is not what's going to happen. And when you bear in mind that even the governor of the Bank of England, Carney, said that the moment, if Brexit is the choice of the people, everything will nosedive and we have to put aside £240 billion as a reserve, etc., etc. And even at that time, people like Rishiji who were doing their analysis were saying, our models don't bear this out. So in fact, he has been consistently correct in analysing and understanding what the figures were saying. So his appointment and elevation to Chancellor, just on the basis of expertise, experience, and sustained being correct, shall we say, they're very good indicators. Now, why did, I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, I just wanted a quick aside. I think Carney is continuing as governor of Bank of England, isn't he?
No, I believe that a successor has been mooted. And so Carney's position with us, I don't think, is going to be that long. In fact, a successor, I think, was announced not so long ago.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. My data is not up to date. Please continue about Sajid Javid. Please continue about Sajid Javid's exit.
So turning to Sajid Javid and his resignation in defense of his loyal team of special advisors, I think we're back to Sir Humphrey and what goes on behind the scenes in the civil service. We have to take that into account. This would be a classic episode, I think. Now, one or two things that a challenge that Boris Johnson's team have always had is that his team is leading the vision, but those tasked with executing and delivering the vision, the civil service, by and large disagreed with Brexit. And so in trying to understand why this would happen, maybe one scenario is that perhaps special advisors were still too close to the vision of being aligned with the European project. It's very uncommon for such a wholesale culling of special advisors to occur unless there is something at that level. My feeling would probably be that maybe there are still vestiges of the groups who wanted a very close alignment with Europe, still in Parliament, still in the civil service, and potentially still causing a little bit of difficulty. One thing you have to notice, and that is that Prime Minister Johnson's team are very clearly focused on what they want to do. I remember the newspapers reporting that when he chose his team for the elections and when he chose the cabinet afterwards, the primary instruction was they had to be 100% committed to delivering what the population of the United Kingdom had voted for, i.e. Brexit, in the interests of the British people. And so we still have Europhiles, and I suspect there may be something to do with European associations in this culling. And Sajid Javid has fallen on his sword in defense of his special advisors, which seems very, very noble from one point of view. But no, there seems to be an inconsistency there, and I'm sure that the news will emerge in due course.
Absolutely. And viewers, you must remember that United Kingdom punches way above its weight as far as the global finance is concerned. And this is a very, very critical appointment. And I'm sure that was the reason probably why Prime Minister Johnson decided that he needed to clean the entire slate of appointees and start afresh. Now, one of the interesting asides that I wanted to point out was that when Brexit was, going through this turbulence under Theresa May. I mean, when we look back at history, like say a decade from now, and look at what was happening in United Kingdom, it took a fair amount of churn before a right set of ministers or the right set of people came to the helm of the affairs. And then all of a sudden, it seems like the cobwebs have been cleared and there is a path now and they're walking down that path. So I'm very pleased about the decisiveness with which this team is moving. I'm really pleased with that. So all the best to them. And let's hope that this kind of office cleaning, house cleaning, if you will be undertaken by the other larger democracies. Hint, hint. I know, and I know who I am giving this nudge to. So, but this hangout is about United Kingdom. So let us stay on that one for now.
And you mentioned decisiveness. I think that raises a really important issue. You mentioned also that Prime Minister Johnson has selected a number of Indian origin members into very senior roles. Priti Patel, Honourable Priti Patel, she is the Home Secretary and has been performing and leading with quite a bit of strength. And that's sending shockwaves in a political system which had become used to everything being dissected and challenged and poured over until it died, basically, it's quite refreshing to have people making decisions. Now, at least if you're making decisions, then the country starts to gain a little bit of confidence in the decision-making capacity. If a decision is taking 3.5 years to be delivered, eventually the population say, well, nothing is happening, for heaven's sake, please do something. And now with an 80-seat majority, it's refreshing to hear that, oh, such and such a bill is going to pass through the House within a matter of days, something that was only a few months ago taking 6 months to execute. There is one very humorous angle to this, and that is we now have an Indian origin Priti Patel as Home Secretary. We have Alok Sharma as the Business Development Secretary, and now we have Rishi Sunak also in a position of influence as the Chancellor. And one of my more mischievous friends said, well, there was a time when the Rajas in India used to outsource the governance of their kingdoms to the British, and now it seems that the British have decided that they need to outsource some of the governance aspects of their country to a bunch of Indians. And I can see how that would obviously be quite a humorous little bit of mischief. But it is encouraging, and I think it's also a shot across the bows of the Labour Party that they have always had the moral high ground and saying we're the party which are non-racist, we're the party who look after the minorities. That particular claim is dead in the water now. We have had appointments at the highest level, and those appointments are being made by and large to people who seem to be doing the jobs that they're assigned to very, very well indeed. So that's very encouraging for the future. A new style of Tory conservatism. Let's hope that the Labour guys get their act together and also catch up.
Yes, absolutely, because this has been my stance all along, and I'm sure you will agree with me, Panditji, that for a thriving, vibrant democracy, you need to have a strong opposition and a very committed ruling party. So we want both parties to be strong. You don't want to have a one-way, because that kind of gives you absolute power, and that is not also good. Go ahead, please. You want to say something? Yeah.
I was just saying that those of us who engage in sadhana or in swadhyaya or any of those practices that our ancient teachings guide us to do, we know that a stubborn ego is a major impediment for any human being. Now, when a political party also has a stubborn ego, sometimes life teaches them that their dogma has to be broken and they have to leave those deeply held views which in fact don't bear scrutiny. And it is very much a case that the dogmatic views of the Labour Party are now being given a thorough rinsing in the public space. And one by one, I think that these uninspected, unscrutinized, but rigidly held beliefs are all going to come under the microscope. And hopefully we will see a maturation, a coming into the 21st century of the Labour Party quite soon.
And I hope so too. And Satish Kumarji, let's look at the second topic that we wanted to talk about, which was the announcement by Justin Welby yesterday, about the church's racist policies and so on and so forth. Now, it has been a long-standing wish of yours that the Church of England also apologize. And do you think that with this statement that things have kind of stabilized and that people can all move on to a more prosperous future?
Oh, the devil is in the detail, shall we say? So let's have a look. So, firstly, the statement that was made by Archbishop Justin Welby only yesterday, what he actually said was that he is sorry and ashamed of the institutional racism that is such a fundamental part of the Church of England. Now, this is a very bold statement, but we do know that the Pope, for example, has apologized 99 times in different countries for the excesses of the Roman Catholic Church. And so making apologies is something that comes relatively easily. We know that the Anglican Church in Canada made an incredible apology for all of the atrocities that were inflicted upon the native indigenous populations. Very full and frank apology, and that too has been looked at with a little bit of skepticism. So if we have a look at this particular apology, it's very interesting that we dig into it a little bit deeper. Now, from the dharmic perspective, we recognize that there is only one race, and that is the human race.
Yes,
that we are all part of one human family.
Right.
So we don't buy into the concept of multiple races within the human family. So when a religious leader says, oh, my institution is guilty of racism, we step back and think, well, that doesn't really make sense to us. Dig a little bit deeper. Now, in his statement, what he said is, I'm personally sorry and ashamed. I'm ashamed of our history, and I'm ashamed of our failure. I'm ashamed of my lack of urgent voice to the church, etc., etc., etc. So on the one hand, this statement is being made, and on the other hand, we still have a very strong evangelical movement which is trying to convert Indians to take a better vision. There is a disconnect there. If your own house is not in order, then on what moral basis do you seize the opportunity to try and remove diverse religious opinions in other countries? It doesn't stack up. The second thing that is troubling about this notion about institutional racism, one of the other comments that he made, he said, I have white advantage, educational advantage, straight advantage, male advantage. I'm not ashamed of those advantages. I'm ashamed of not knowing I had them. Okay, this too is an interesting statement. It certainly indicates that he's more aware of the manner in which the world is moving away from the old white privilege, white authority, colonial ways of running this world, which is a very positive sign. But thirdly, this comment about racism, there is another remark he made, and in that remark he made that we need to have more members of the Black and minority ethnic community joining our church, right? And so clearly there isn't a problem of racism with Black and minority ethnic community members in the church. Otherwise he wouldn't be saying, oh yes, we need more of them. The problem is very clearly one of white supremacy, of white prejudice, white privilege against Black and minority ethnic people. Now, I think if we are going to get over this problem of supremacy, white supremacy, then we have to stop calling it racism. As I said, conceptually, we don't understand what this racism concept is, but it's very clear when somebody on the basis of color is assuming that they are superior to somebody else, and it needs to be named as that. I mean, if there is a problem within the church of brown supremacy, where a bunch of brown guys are running around saying, no, 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 we're better than you white guys, and we're not going to let you attain to higher positions in the church, then let's call it brown supremacy or Black supremacy. But if it's white supremacy, and everything he is saying indicates that it is, then I think we need to address it as white supremacy. And then we have a chance of actually perhaps moving forward. So I hope it's an invitation to a dialogue. I mean, you mentioned that I've been working on this for a long time, over a period of 5 or 6 years. The first event I held on this subject was in Parliament, and it was about the abuse of religious authority. And we know that members of the Church of England tried to prevent us from having that talk inside of Parliament. I did a talk in Westminster Abbey where we talked about this same issue. This is a religious institution whose head has said that their institution is white supremacist, and yet they run the interfaith initiative in this country. So if those same white supremacists who are now causing such a problem within the church are the same guys who are running interfaith activity, no wonder interfaith has not progressed in this community. And we've always felt that it was actually significantly deceitful. And the deceit was that it was inviting everyone to engage in interfaith dialogue, but with no intention of allowing any change in the status quo. And his statement again talks to that. And the third talk that I did was in Westminster Abbey, where we raised this issue of the duplicity between doctrine and practice. And so this is coming to a head. And I think in the 21st century, everybody will review the fact that, hang on a minute, we have a very powerful institution whose members, when they supposedly follow the doctrines of the church that the church touts to everybody else, are singularly unsuccessful in following them. Of what value is this institution? Personally, I think it's only a question of time if the church doesn't genuinely engage with the issues that are facing it, if the church doesn't openly admit its colonialist history and its supremacist inclinations, then I think it's destined for the dustbin of history. It's not relevant anymore. The vast majority of the English population are now looking at it and saying, well, what is the utility in having a bunch of white guys running around saying we're all holier than thou, and yes, give us 1/10 of all of your income, and allow us to be the moral custodians of your communities and societies. while on the other hand, failing so terribly in being moral custodians. So this is going to raise a whole heap of issues, and I really hope that we can work with them, that we can present a dharmic alternative to the way in which they've been doing things, and maybe come out at the other end where we genuinely have an institution which is focused on the well-being of its parishioners and its constituents, as opposed to something which is really now deemed to be enjoying life at the expense of its parishioners. So, yep, the churn is underway here as well. I think we're hoping this will really allow us to contribute better than they have in the past.
And good luck to you on your untiring efforts to unite everyone, to take everyone forward, sir. And this is really what the Dharma tells us, Sarva Dharma Samabhava.
Absolutely.
And this is something that is very close to your heart, and I'm nothing but praise for the amount of work that you have taken upon yourself to do this. So all the best to you, sir. And let's move on to this surprise topic that I wanted to refer to, and maybe it should come from you so that it has a maximum impact.
Well, what can I say? So we touched on a couple of issues with regard to the BBC over the years. And in the UK, there is now a significant movement who are saying that the BBC needs to be privately funded. It needs to raise its own money. It needs to operate as a commercial entity, and it shouldn't be funded by government and by the taxpayer. And one of the issues has always been that it's always been a post-colonial voice, still with those biases. And the capacity for it to do harm in the former colonies is something that has always been a major worry. And what we were getting was little bits of information leaking out over the last month that the BBC's Indian Hindi service, radio service, was now going to be curtailed. And I think the great news that we heard only a few days ago was that in fact that has now stopped. So there is no BBC Hindi service out there, and we're hoping that will be a catalyst for them to review the fact that they need to be genuinely honest as a reporter, as a news broadcaster, and not as somebody who is publishing propaganda. So a changing sign of the times and the tides of fortune. So that is excellent news. We're very, very happy about that.
Times, they are changing indeed. And finally, there has been some movement in terms of thinking on part of the Ministry of External Affairs of India that the way they have been doing things perhaps needs introspection, and perhaps there has to be a change to be brought about. And in this direction, Panditji and I have been talking about various places, various instances where the British High Commission, the Indian High Commission in London was perhaps found to be reacting more than being a little bit more nimble on their feet. I don't want to go into the gory details, but I'm sure one of the main reasons for this new rethink on part of the Ministry of External Affairs in India is some of the things that we brought to light. What are your thoughts on this, Panditji?
I think so, and I think this is an ongoing process, really. The fact remains that for the British-Indo relationship to thrive and prosper, there needs to be win-win situations. There needs to be proactive engagement. We need to have political appointees in the MEA as representatives of the voice of India. Now, we're working very hard, and sometimes without the approval and without the welcoming embrace of members of the High Commission, but this is for everybody's well-being. I think if we can upgrade the manner in which India projects its voice throughout the world to suit the needs of India and indeed the wider world, then that will be a great thing. So I'm hoping that we're going to see some significant announcements this month, even before the end of the month. I'm confident that we're going to have a great deal of change and some major policy shifts. And as you and I both talk to Dr. Swamiji fairly regularly and receive guidance and updates and news from him, I understand that our hopes about an upgrade in MEA to MEA version 2.0 is certainly something that's being considered in the corridors of power. So we look forward to hearing some good news about that.
And just to add to your point, Panditji, see, this has been something that I've given some thought, and that's why I'm saying this. This is the second time I'm coming out and saying this. The Indian government should seriously think about giving dual citizenship, full-fledged citizenship for some people who qualify. You can put some filters on how they can qualify. For example, you can say that anybody who wants to have dual citizenship must be recommended by a member of parliament. That way, the member of parliament is responsible should something happen. And why I say this is important is because the amount of workload that happens in some of these consulates has to be seen to be believed. I'm told that the consular officers, these are all one level below the consul general, they all are handling up to 300 to 400 passport applications a day.
Wow.
On top of what they already do. Now take this thing, keep that data at the back of your mind. Think that, supposing there are people of Indian citizenship, but they are residing in places like San Francisco or London, who have some cycles to donate. Some of us may be well off. Some of us are, patriotic minded. We would like to help out. There is no reason for us not to help out in trying to help them to, get these things go faster. And for that, you need to be a citizen. You have to be a full-fledged citizen so that you enjoy the same kind of rights. And the United States has done this with many other countries in the past. So for those who are, citizens of United States or United Kingdom, dual citizenship is something that has been done with many other countries. So, and this is a win-win situation. Trust me when I say this. This is a win-win situation because anybody who wants to take early retirement from, say, UK or US, they want to go and set up their own business in India, they need to have the freedom to do everything they want to do. For example, if I want to buy land, I should be able to buy land. Today, with an OCI card, I cannot. So these kind of restrictions need to kind of fall away. And I tell you what, people from the US and UK, I'm just giving two countries, there could be other countries also, they have enough jobs to try and help take care of some of the huge bottlenecks that exist in the Indian system in terms of computerization of things that have to be computerized and so on and so forth. So you want to do it with pride, not with, I hope, this guy doesn't come calling today. That feeling needs to go away. And I'm hoping that this is something that the government listens to and acts on it. What are your thoughts, sir?
I think it's a great initiative. Certainly, this is something that active dialogue should be taking place on. Now, this is connected to our previous point. I imagine the government of India is relying upon information that it receives from its missions around the world. And I'm sure that some of the issues that we've mentioned, where the missions perhaps are not up to speed in presenting the correct information to enable them to make this decision. Now, hopefully that part of this MEA upgrade and the MEA becoming very much more up to speed on how to react and respond in this new 21st century world, I think that may well open the floodgates to genuine data, genuine consultation on this issue. And personally, I can see very few disadvantages in that situation, in the suggestion. So I certainly hope the dialogue accelerates and we can have much more freedom. If you think about the power and the potential in the Indo-British relationship, the capacity for vast amounts of movement of people, what could be more natural than having people who are citizens of both countries working in the interests of both countries? This would be very much more in line with the dharmic vision of how humanity should be cooperating and collaborating. So from that point of view, it would certainly have my blessing. And let's see whether somewhere down the line, a couple of years down the line, maybe even a few short months down the line, we can sit back and say, actually, this was a domino that we tipped first, and look where it's ended up. So yes, good luck with this initiative as well.
Yes, indeed, and I'll be pleased to sponge if something like that should happen.
No, let's see where it goes.
And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. This is a very important hangout, and viewers, do not forget to subscribe to PGurus channel and also to donate to us. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, and namaskar, Panditji.
Pranam Siarji, and best wishes to all of the watchers as well. And I'm going to put in a plug for you as well.
Yes.
Brothers and sisters, respected elders, please do subscribe. The initiative needs as much momentum as we can give it. It's already beginning to gather quite a good following, and the more influential we can become, the better it will be for everybody. So thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to our next conversation, Aji. Pranamji, namaskar.
Namaskar, namaskar.